There's this book that billions of people have said changed their lives. But if we're being honest, most people find it confusing, outdated, irrelevant, and impossible to read. Here's the thing though, that difficulty, it's not a design flaw, it's genius. And if you're spiritual but not religious, you've probably wondered, what's the big deal with this massive book that feels like all of the Lord of the Rings compiled into one massive volume? Why not just get the Cliff Notes or watch the movie on Netflix? What if I told you that making it simple would have actually made it useless? And I can prove it with one ancient story that will change how you see every difficult thing you've ever tried to learn about the Bible. Look, if you just want spiritual truth, why not make it easy, right? Imagine the most influential book in human history on a single page. I exist. Don't be a dick. Signed, God. Right? Done. Clear. Simple. But would that simple message have changed art, literature, science and philosophy for thousands of years? Would it still be changing lives today? It is kind of like Lord of the Rings, right? Nobody needs to learn Elvish. Nobody needs to read it dozens of times. But people do, because the depth pulls them in. The complexity is what makes it unforgettable. And this struggle with complexity, it's not new. Let me tell you about a fella in Acts chapter 8. Picture this. You're sitting in your car reading something really important but confusing when somebody knocks on your window and you roll it down. Well, this man, an Ethiopian eunuch, a high-ranking official, was sitting in his chariot reading the prophet Isaiah. And he's struggling. He's struggling to understand the scroll he has in front of him. And Philip, one of Jesus' followers, walks up and asks, "Do you understand what you're reading?" And the eunuch, he gives maybe one of the most honest answers in the Bible. He says, "How can I, unless somebody guides me?" Now, here's where it gets interesting. The man was a foreigner who traveled all the way from Jerusalem. And as a eunuch in that culture, well, he was excluded from traditional religious spaces. He was considered an outsider. And maybe you know that feeling. Like you're on the edge of faith, but you're not allowed in because you don't tick the right boxes. But Philip doesn't say, well, first you need to find a church, or come back when you're qualified, come back when you have a PhD in theology. He just jumps right into the chariot alongside him and sits down. No judgment, no requirements, and no gatekeeping. Here's the thing. When a text makes you wrestle with complex ideas, when it forces you to seek other perspectives, question your assumptions, or engage with people who think differently, you don't just collect information, you develop wisdom. Think about it. The poetry that moves you, the relationships that matter, the ideas that change and shape your worldview, none of them just come in neat little sound bites. Complex wisdom texts do 5 powerful things. They create genuine community because you need other people's perspectives. They develop intellectual humility because you realize how much you don't know. They promote self-discovery. Wrestling with meaning reveals who you are, and they build emotional intelligence. Complex narratives make you see through other people's eyes. They ensure lifelong growth. You'll keep finding new layers for the rest of your life. The Bible's difficulty isn't a barrier, it's a training ground. And that Ethiopian dude, well, once Philip explains what he's been reading, the man's entire perspective shifts. He's so excited that he shouts, "Look, here's some water. What's stopping me from being baptized right now?" The man who felt excluded and confused is suddenly included and transformed. No waiting period, no hoops to jump through. So whether you're religious or spiritual but not religious, or just curious about why this book still matters, why it has so much impact thousands of years later, well, find your Philip, someone who will explore that with you without judgment. Embrace the questions. Confusion isn't failure, it's just a doorway in. Learn the context. Learning the history makes the hard bits click together. And when you're reading, just take your time. You're not in a race. Trust the process. The difficulty is what transforms you. So what's the philosophical or spiritual questions that you keep wrestling with in the text that come up over and over? Just drop it in the comments and let's explore it together. This is part 1 of a series. Next week, we're getting practical. How to actually read the Bible without falling asleep. Because knowing why it's complex is one thing, but learning to enjoy that complexity, that's where the magic happens. And hey, if this changed how you think about engaging with difficult ideas, hit subscribe. When we hit 1,000 subscribers, I'll host a live Q&A for all of your toughest questions. I can't guarantee I'll have all the answers, but I will have no filters and no padded answers. My name's Jacob, and this might be church.